Hello everyone and welcome back into another video. Today I want to make a quick tier list about basically all the characters, where they rank up, what are their strengths, their weaknesses and why they deserve the SS tier for example or the C tier. And let's start with Albedo here. He is probably an A tier, he's a great support, deals damage whenever you attack enemies, and deals geo damage, deals a lot of damage. He has many 4-star options for weapons, and the new set that gives the defense percentage is just insane, so he can really deal a lot of damage with his elemental skill and also his elemental burst, so overall a great sub DPS. Then we have Aloy here, and she probably deserves a B, but that's mostly because she doesn't have constellations yet, so we don't know her full potential, and I don't know if they're ever gonna release constellations for her, but for now her abilities are usable, but they're not great. Her elemental skill has an insane cooldown, super long cooldown, not really even worth using, while her elemental burst deals quite a okay amount of damage, but it really needs some tweaking or some constellations. Moving on to Ember, our favorite Alto Rider, and she is probably also B. She can deal a lot of damage, and if you have constellations for her, she can be one of the best supports for your pyro carries, especially if you're using the 5-star bow, the elegy. That's probably one of the best sub DPS and support you can put in your team to basically increase your pyro damage a lot, and she also deals a lot of damage if you build her correctly. And yeah, overall good character, not maybe worth leveling up too much, but definitely a fun character, and you also get her for free, so that's added points. Moving on to Ayaka, and well, she is definitely an SS tier. She's gonna be our first SS tier. She's been in the banner for a long time, so probably a lot of people already have her, and she can clear literally any content in the game easily with her burst, just throwing it out and dealing massive amount of damage. Also her normal attacks and her elemental skill deal an insane amount of damage. I've done a build guide and a tutorial for Ayaka and how to use her and her abilities as the best as possible, so if you wanna check that out, the link is in the top right corner right now. And yeah, overall a great DPS. She deals what a DPS should do, which is destroying everything, and definitely a great character to have. Then we have Barbara, probably the cutest character in this list, but yeah, she's probably an A tier. She's a great support. She can heal your team fully with her burst and also heal your active character while her elemental skill is active, and she can also revive one character every 20 minutes, I think it is, whenever they fall to full HP. Since she's a catalyst user, you can give her the Trillion Phase of Dragon Slayer that gives the character used weapon to 48% more attack, and that's just amazing. She's an healer that can provide also an attack bonus. Moving on to Beidou, and here we have our first S tier, I would say. She's a very good sub DPS. She can deal an insane amount of damage through her elemental skill and her elemental burst, because it can chain through enemies, so the more enemies the more damage. She uses it in combo with Child a lot to deal massive electro charge damage to basically all the enemies in the room. It's great for bosses because she can use her elemental skill to basically parry and deal like 50,000 damage or something like that, just crazy numbers. Very good character overall. Another SS tier unit here, very easy to put there, is gonna be Bennett. Bennett is just amazing, just so much healing. He can give your entire party a massive amount of attack with his elemental burst. He can heal you, he can buff you, especially if you have Constellation 2, I think it is, or Constellation 1. Just insane character. Probably also one of the best pyro DPS in the game if you wanna build him like that. Just insane, just build this character if you have him. If you don't, just try to get it. It's just that good. You can also buy it from the shop whenever you see him there. Yeah, completely worth it, just best character in the game probably. Moving on to Chongyun, this character is probably a B tier since he has some uses, but he's not the best character in the game. He is the one that can infuse your weapon, if it's a melee weapon, with cryo whenever you use his elemental skill, and he can also deal an okay amount of damage with his burst, unless you build like crazy amounts of damage for your burst. So very okay sub DPS. I've seen a lot of people using him in combo with Shenhe to basically use her as a cryo DPS. He can also reduce your cooldowns through the use of his elemental skill, so that's another added bonus. Moving on to Diluc, the OG DPS of Genshin Impact. He was the first DPS in the game, and he deserves S tier just for that. He's been so good like all these years. He is still usable today. He can deal lots of damage with his normal attacks, deal an insane amount of damage with his burst, and also keep your normal attacks going to the use of his elemental skill. Just an amazing character, very chill to play. It's super cool. It's a very satisfying character to play. Very cool. He can also maintain his Pyro Infusion on his ward whenever you swap into another character and back to him. Very cool character. Just if you have Diluc, don't worry, it's so much fun to play. I've used him so much even for like normal content and bosses and stuff. It's just an amazing character. Moving on to Diona, and she's gonna be probably, I will say, either A or S tier. I'm gonna put her in S tier though, but that's only because she has healing and a shield. And if you have Constellation 6, she can also buff your Elemental Mastery. So that's just so much stuff that she can do for being a 4-star. Really useful. She has probably the second strongest shield in the game after Zhongli. She can also heal a lot with her Elemental Burst. She has like so much stuff you can do with her, paired with Ayaka, for example, to get Cryo Resonance. She's probably one of the best healers in the game for her. She can also be used in combo with Kazuha to give him more Elemental Mastery and buff your other teammates even more. So many options for her just being a 4-star, just amazing character. And there we have Eula. And Eula is going to be, for me, probably an S tier, but that's only because she has one downside, which is her burst. If your burst doesn't crit, or your burst misses because the enemies died, or they moved away, or they're teleporting around, or you are too far away, you lose basically all your damage. Her normal attacks are not that great, Razor is just better, and her elemental skill needs some setup to deal damage, so it's quite gimmicky, but I like her because of her elemental burst that deals an insane amount of damage. So if you're facing a boss that you cannot kill, just use Eula, cast your burst, attack the enemy a bunch of times, and he's gonna just explode in a million pieces. So yeah, she's gonna be nasty just because of that annoyance, but everything else in her kit is just amazing. She feels really good to play, almost like Diluc. She can basically use her elemental skill to keep her normal attacks flow going, so yeah, very cool character overall. Moving on to Yanfei, she's one of my favorite Catalyst users because of her ability to basically snipe people, because she can attack them from very far away, and she's gonna be an A tier because she's an okay DPS unit, but the thing is that she can basically blast enemies in a few seconds using her burst, elemental skill, and normal attacks and charge attacks in combo. She can deal a lot of damage in like a very short amount of time. Very cool character overall, even as C0. If you have constellations, she's gonna be completely broken as always. So yeah, cool DPS option, but just an A tier for me. Moving on to Fischl, she's also gonna be an A tier, and that's because she's Electro, and odds doesn't get buffed from a lot of things, while for example Beidou, she can buff her burst through artifact sets or weapons, and basically Fischl can only increase her elemental skill damage only by weapons, unless you wanna use like 3-star or 4-star artifacts, which are not the great. So yeah, that's why she's gonna be an A tier and Beidou an S tier. They kinda do the same thing, which is off-field electro damage, but Beidou just deals more damage if it's multiple enemies you're attacking. She's a good option though for proccing like Super Conduct with Eula, for example, because her ult stays on the ground for a long time and you can refresh it with your elemental burst. So yeah, those two in combo are okay, but her as a sub DPS unit, it's alright. Moving on to Ganyu, I don't like her playstyle, but she's an S tier. We know that she's an S tier. If you have her 6-6, she's gonna be an S tier, because she can basically blast any boss in the game in like 3 seconds. So she's just completely broken. She deals a lot of damage with her charge attacks, with her blooming plume, whatever it's called. Can also taunt enemies with her elemental skill and apply cryo and deal a lot of damage with that skill as well. And also through her elemental burst, she can basically always have that huge cryo area to freeze enemies if you're using a freeze team, and that ability basically doesn't have a cooldown, because the cooldown and the duration are the same amount. I think it's 15 seconds. Yeah, you can just basically keep spamming your elemental burst, keep enemies frozen. Completely insane character. Just if you have her, probably one of the best characters in the game as well. but as I said, her gameplay can feel quite clunky, having to charge attack, and if you miss, you basically lose all your damage, so that's why she's gonna be an S tier for me. Moving on to Goro, he's gonna be a B tier, because he does one thing and one thing only, which is buffing Ito or Noelle. So he just does that. He buffs geo damage, he buffs defense, and he makes you, I think, more resistant to knockdowns with his elemental burst. But yeah, overall good character, but it just doesn't get used too much unless you have Ito or Noelle build. Too situational for me, so I'm not gonna put him above B tier. And then we have Wu Tao. Wu Tao is gonna be an SS tier. She doesn't have any downside. Her kit is just that good. She can basically activate her elemental skill, keep spamming charge attacks, and end with a massive burst to heal herself. She doesn't even need another character in the team, she can just do it all by herself. But of course, if you have, for example, Zhongli or any other Anemo unit to strip resistances from enemies, she's just gonna become even more broken. The one thing you may have problems with is putting a healer in the team, because yeah, she kind of doesn't want to heal too much. You want to keep her under 50%, but even if you don't keep her under 50% HP, she's gonna destroy everything anyway, so she's just that good. You can even parry her with Bennett and Ayaka to deal like insane melt damage. Just so many options, completely broken character. If you have her, I don't think you'll have any problem with anything in the game. Moving on to Hito, another easy SS tier. Recently released character, and he is also coming back in like a month, so 2 banners in a row, kinda. Okay, they kinda wanted to push Ito, I guess, but I don't really enjoy his playstyle of spamming charge attacks and having to charge them, but he deals so much damage, I cannot just understate that. He deals a massive amount of damage with his charge attack, his elemental skill, his little ball. It can throw at enemies or over the cliff and just snipe people, just so much fun. He deals so much damage with him as well. He deals like 80,000 damage. He has free-to-play options. The artifact set for this character is completely broken, and if you have Goro, he becomes just insane. Yeah, overall, crazy character, crazy character. Moving on to Keia, then, he's gonna be another B tier, as all these characters, they do not have a lot of uses, but they are still usable, so I feel like he's the same, because he can apply a lot of cryo, deal an okayish amount of damage. He can also heal himself with his elemental skill, and his elemental skill as well deals a modest amount of damage. That's basically Keia. You just wanna basically use your burst, use your E, or vice versa, and swap to another teammate, and he's using some combo positions to keep enemies frozen, but that's about it. Nothing crazy going on here. Could be a good physical DPS though, because he has a lot of damage and very high multipliers on his normal attacks. But yeah, overall, maybe good character for like starting the game. He can deal, as I said, a lot of damage with physical build. But other than that, you may just want to move to something else, like even Razor or whatever else. Alright, big character right here. He's gonna be an SS tier. There's no doubt Kazuha is an SS tier. It has been almost a year since his release. I know that everyone is looking for him and waiting for his rerun. I am super sorry for everyone who skipped him and didn't get this character, because he's just that broken. He also had in his at the same time of his banner the sword, the Freedom Sword. That was another completely insane sword that basically can buff your teammates even more. So if you have him and that sword as well, you can just basically chill the game. You're gonna deal so much more damage. For example, sometimes I use my Ayaka and Kazuha together, and my Ayaka goes from doing like 8,000 damage to doing at least 13,000 damage, so it's just that broken. It's just completely insane. You can group up enemies, debuff them, give everyone elemental damage, like crazy percentages of more elemental damage. We're looking about like 30% with a free-to-play build. So yeah, just completely broken. His burst as well can create this massive bubble to keep dealing elemental damage and also debuffing enemies. Probably the best Anemo support in the game right now. Then we have Keqing. Keqing is gonna be another S tier for me. She was the other DPS that was very used in the early stages of Genshin. She was compared to Diluc a lot, and there were like debates for who was the strongest and whatever, but I feel like they are kind of the same. They just have different setups. You can build there for Electro or Physical, so you have two options right there, while Diluc you just want to build him Pyro. So overall good character. She can deal a lot of damage with her elemental skill, infuse her normal attacks with Electro, and her burst deals an insane amount of damage as well. And also covers a large area around the casting point, so you can kinda hit everyone in the zone. Cool character overall. I like her movement and the fact that you can teleport around with her stiletto, her elemental skill. Very cool character overall for exploring. Moving on to Klee, or Claire. Well, she's just, for me it's an A tier, but that's because I don't really enjoy her playstyle of throwing bombs. They feel super slow. The thing you have to do is kinda master her charge attacks and spam them while cancelling your charge attacks animation, doing weird stuff. Using your burst is okay, she has an insane burst, as well as her elemental skill, completely insane. And of course, if you have constellations for her, she's one of those characters that you use for like dealing nuke builds, because she can strip a defense from enemies with her elemental skill. It's an okay character again, but as for gameplay, I don't really enjoy her that much. She deals a lot of damage, don't get me wrong, she deals more damage than Diluc, but she's just not as fun as Diluc for me, so she's gonna be an A tier just for that. Moving on to Kokomi, she's an S tier. She's an S tier, she can apply so much Hydro, she heals so much. You can even build her to deal some damage. I've seen Kokomi dealing lots of damage while using the elemental burst, which basically increases your damage by a lot. She doesn't crit, she completely doesn't crit, which is fun. It's different, you have to build her for just basically attack and healing bonus to give her more damage and more heals, of course. You can refresh your elemental skill, which is the little shellfish that stays on ground and pulses healing around you. And that's amazing for like normal content, because you can just swap to another character and heal him in a few seconds, while also applying Hydro, as I said before. And she's one of the best characters to use with Ayato as well, because both of them can freeze enemies. So yeah, overall very good healer and also cool character for that specific design. And she's a catalyst user, so she can also use the Trillion Tales of Dragon Slayer, so that's even more damage for your DPS. So very cool character, very cute. Lisa, okay, Lisa has an interesting position, which is B as well, but that's just because she's a niche character. I know her climbing thing, we're not gonna talk about that, but she can deal an okay amount of damage with her normal attacks and her elemental skill if you charge it all the way, while her elemental burst can strip defense. I don't remember if it's a constellation or just a passive talent, but that's quite powerful for just being a free 4-star you get. So yeah, cool character, can apply a lot of Electro, so she can also be used in physical teams where you wanna apply Super Combat. She can be the one that applies Electro quite easily, but yeah, overall she's just another niche character. She has some uses, but nothing crazy. Then we have Mona Magistus, our favorite astrologist. She's gonna be an A tier. She is an insane buffer, but she only does that. You can build her for damage, for sure, and she can also deal a lot of damage actually if you want to build her as a DPS, but she just works better for just nuking builds and increasing your damage against enemies, especially bosses or enemies that have so much HP. She can kinda debuff them so much. So if you're using her and Bernat and any other character in the game, you can kinda destroy whatever boss you have in front of you. And she can apply a lot of Hydro as well with her elemental skill, and the fact that she can kinda throw out those mini elemental skills whenever she's dashing around and she's aggroed by an enemy. Cool character, very cool character, but I just think that there are better options, for example Bennett, while she remains a little bit behind Bennett in compositions. Moving on to Ningguang, another probably A tier as well. She's I will say she's basically as powerful as Yanfei. They kinda do the same thing, you just wanna spam your elemental skill and elemental burst, and your normal and charge attacks, just rotating those around depending on what buffs you have at that moment and stuff. She was one of the best DPS in the game a couple of years ago, but that was because we had really few options and she did an okay amount of damage. She can still be used, don't get me wrong, but there are just better options. For example, here Ito, if you have him, he's just so much more powerful than her. So very cool character. I love her design and the new skin that they gave out for free. Just so cool. But I know why people play her, because she's really strong and she can basically do whatever in Genshin without any trouble. So you can even mine ores, since she can throw out those little rocks that explode, and those deal an occasional amount of damage to the ores around, so you can use her for farming minerals and get your missing enhancement ores. So she has that going. Very cool for exploration as well, because she can also see the ores around you. So yeah, cool character for exploration and normal gameplay for like everyday stuff. And then we have Noelle, the wannabe knight. Noelle has been given so much power in the past 6-ish months, basically after Ito's release, so she's gonna be an S tier now, and that's because of the new 5-star weapon that was released with Ito, the Red Horn Trash something I think it's called, and also the new defense set. That defense set is just completely broken, because if you give her those two things, she just becomes insane, and she deals almost the same damage as Ito. And we're talking about a 4-star that you get for free at the start of the game, literally just for free, against a 5-star that you have to pull for. So yeah, she's just insane. She can also heal. She has a shield that when it explodes deals like a mini nuke and kills everything around you. Very cool character. I love her playstyle. She can make your sword like so huge, and you can hit things that are so far away. I just love her design. Her appearance is just amazing, and she is also Geo, so that means that she has one of the strongest resonances in the game, because Geo resonance gives you basically even more damage. If you have Noelle, if you like her playstyle, go for it. It's completely worth it. You can clear Abyss, you can clear anything with her. She's just amazing. And then we have Jin. Jin is gonna be an A tier. She's an amazing healer. Don't get me wrong, she's also Anemo. You know what? She's gonna be an S tier probably. That's because she has Anemo. If she wasn't Anemo, she would have been probably an A tier. But she can basically refill your HP bar on all your teammates by the press of your elemental burst button. She can throw enemies in the air with her elemental skill, so that's like a cool thing that only she can do for now. I don't know, she has some cool things going on, but you kind of want to use her just for her elemental skill and elemental burst, and she's one of the best healer in a Shao team. Again, she's Anemo, so she can strip elemental resistances by the use of the Viridescent set. Very cool character overall, and her elemental burst deals also a lot of damage whenever you cast it, so you have to also consider that. You can clear like trash mobs in Abyss with her elemental burst without any big troubles if you build her correctly, and she also heals based on her attack, not her HP, so that's why she can also deal more damage. Overall, one of the probably best healers in the game. And moving on to probably the worst healer in the game. I mean, she's the best healer in the game, because she literally heals you so much you don't even know what to do with the healing. But I don't know, she's gonna be the C tier here. She only does healing. She has an insane cooldown on her elemental skill and her elemental burst. Her Constellation 6 is basically Barbara's Constellation 6, but for your whole team. I don't know, it's just that she only provides healing. She's not even Catalyst user, so she cannot even use it in terms of Dragon Slayer. She's a cryo unit, so I don't know, she's just not useful right now. There's no content that needs that much healing. You can give her the Clam set and she can deal an okay amount of damage to the enemies around, but you have to use her in that case as a kind of DPS instead of a healer, so not really worth it. Just if you wanna a cryo healer, just go for Leona. And here we have another one of those DPSs in the game that basically are so old and they were used in the early stages mostly, and that's Razor. And the Razor is still a great DPS, so it's gonna be it's either A or S tier. I would say he's probably an S tier, but that's because his normal attacks deal an insane amount of damage. You have multiple options for artifacts. You can go with like 4-piece Gladiator, 2-piece Pale Flame, 2-piece Gladiator, 2-piece Pale Flame and 2-piece Bloodstain to get 50% more physical damage. There are so many options for his builds. He has so many options for Claymores as well. You can use the one from the Battle Pass if you have the Battle Pass. You can craft the Prototype, the Black Leaf, so many options. He increases his attack speed through the use of his elemental burst, and his elemental skill gives him a lot of energy back, so you can basically cast your elemental burst whenever you want. Just amazing character overall. The only thing is you don't want to do charge attacks, so if you like charge attacks with Claymore for some weird reasons, don't use Razor, but he deals an insane amount of damage. You can probably destroy anything in the game. Only thing being, you need a cryo unit in the team to basically apply super conduct. So if you wanna use him, definitely build him correctly, take your time, make your stats the best as possible, and you'll be fine. And a character that pairs really well with Razor is Rosaria, and she also fits in so many other teams, and I will put her in S tier, and that's because two things. First of all, oh my god, her design is amazing. And second of all, her damage is just insane. You can either go for like a sub DPS build where you use only her elemental burst and her elemental skill to deal around, let's say 15,000 damage with your elemental skill and around 20,000 damage with your elemental burst without introducing any crazy buffs. And I think she has is her Constellation 6 can strip 20% physical resistance from the enemies whenever they get hit by that, and that's why she pairs really well with Razor, because she's also a cryo unit. I use her in so many teams because she's just one of those. I'm gonna throw her in there because she deals so much damage, especially if you wanna build something quite cool that I tried recently, which is a team where you use Shenhe, Rosaria, Shangling and Bennett, and you can basically melt her burst almost all the times and deal around 50-ish thousand damage. So yeah, probably one of those completely insane sub DPS units, and also quite useful in phrase teams as well. If you don't have, for example, Ayaka, she can kind of fit that role. She's not gonna be as good as Ayaka, of course, but she can still deal a lot of damage. Then we have Sarah. Sarah, I will say she's gonna be a B tier. I completely love this character, her design, her story and everything, but she only is good in Electro teams, and only one specifically, which is the one where you use Raiden. She only does basically that, only buffs your attack. She doesn't deal anything else in particular, and she's also quite squishy, so you have to take care of that. You kinda wanna give her one set, which is the Noblesse Oblige set, so a lot of characters already use that set for the Bastion slot, and yeah, I don't think she's gonna fit so many other teams, maybe the ones with the Yaimiko as well, but as I said, she only buffs Electro characters, like it's worth only using in those teams, while in others it's not that great. But if you have Raiden or Yaimiko, she's probably even better than Bennett in some cases. Then we have our sleepy ninja here, Sayu. I will say she's going to be a B tier, but that's mostly because I use Jean instead of her, but they are kind of similar. The only thing being that she is kind of a sub DPS in some cases, where you can use her elemental skill to kind of absorb whatever element you want and use that to apply that element to basically all the enemies in the area, while your other sub DPSs, for example Shanling, can deal so much more damage. She can also basically heal your team with her elemental burst and her elemental skill based on elemental mastery. So many options, definitely a core character. Her elemental skill where you can roll around is quite fun. You can explore with her as well. She's an Anemo unit, so she can use Verdescent Venerary set and strip elemental resistance. And moving on to Shenhe, She's also one of those characters that only does one thing, but she can also be a DPS, so she's gonna be an A tier. She can basically buff your cryo damage by an insane amount. You can use her in Ganyo's team or Ayaka's team, and she's gonna be amazing. Or as I said before, you can use her with Chongyun and use her as your DPS, and yeah, she deals a lot of damage because her elemental skill can either buff your attacks or your skills, depending if you hold the elemental skill button or you just tap it. If you tap it, you buff your skills. If you hold it, you buff your attacks. And she can also basically deal even more damage if you cast her burst. Just so many options. She kinda doubles the damage of every cryo unit, so consider that, but it's capped to a maximum unless you have constellations, so it's mostly used for like quick combos and destroying enemies in a few hits. And then we have another SS tier. It's been quite a while, but that's gonna be Raiden. She has so many uses. She deals so much damage with her elemental burst. She can increase your elemental burst damage with her elemental skill that works for every character in your team. She's basically the best teammate for Eula. She can recharge your energy for your entire team. She does so many things. She's just amazing. She has an insane constellation too. She has like a double personality, so she's quite cool whenever she's talking, and you can hear the double personalities that I was talking about. If you have her and you want to use her in a team specifically, I suggest you use her in the team where you use Xiangling, Xunqiu and Bennett as well. That's probably one of the best teams where you can put her. Even a Zhao team with her is okay, and that's about it. She just is that good. If you want to use her, just use her in any team. She's gonna be perfectly fine. And moving on to another character that now I wanna put in A tier, and she has some potential, but you kinda need constellations. That's gonna be Sucrose, and she can group enemies with her elemental skill. She is a catalyst user and an Anemo unit, so she can basically play Anemo with every hit. And that was used in some combinations with like Xiangling, Xunqiu and Bennett, and also her burst can pull enemies. It's kind of a mini venti burst, but not as powerful. The only thing is that she kinda is a mini Kazuha as well, where she can buff your elemental damage whenever you have, I think, Constellation 6 it is, and the element that gets infused into the burst is gonna be buffed. So yeah, cool character. If you don't have Kazuha or Venti, she's gonna be your choice, of course, no doubt. She's right there with the Anemo supports, but for now she's going to be an A for me, nothing more than that. Moving on to Child. Child has been quite okay as well. He's going to be an A tier. He has a burst that deals an insane amount of damage, and his elemental skill is one of the coolest one in the game, where you can swap from using a bow to using melees, and those melees can completely slash through enemies and destroy them. You can also apply that debuff that basically creates these little explosions that can mark other enemies for explosion, and you can keep doing that. The more enemies you hit, the more damage you're gonna do. So many options. You wanna build him for more crit rate than crit damage, especially if you're just starting to build him, because those explosions will be triggered more the more crit rate you have, because they work based on crit rate. It's a very fun character to play, but there's better, and the only team that he fits is the one where you use Xiangling, Kazuha or Sucrose and Bennett. That's the only team, and you don't use him for damage. You kinda use him to apply a lot of Hydro, because that's what's good with him. He can apply so much Hydro. You can like have Hydro on every enemy in the map, and even if you spam other elemental attacks, you're still gonna see Hydro on all those enemies, so that's quite fun. You have to kinda be careful with his elemental skill, because you don't want to use it for too long, because your cooldown depends on how much you use it, which is cool, but can be kind of annoying sometimes. Yeah, I like that part of the design, because it means that you have to use a bit of strategy to use his skill. Then we have another one of those characters that's gonna be a B tier, because yeah, he has some uses, but you kinda need constellations on him to be good. He can provide a very powerful shield, and he is also pyro, so you can put him with Hu Tao in the same team. but yeah, it's not that good, and since it's pyro, it takes more damage from cryo or hydro and even electro, so it's not gonna be an amazing shield and not gonna last long. And also you need to use your burst to keep it up, and it's quite gimmicky to keep it up, and it just gets destroyed too easily. Even with like 40,000 HP, his shield is still kind of weak. I don't really suggest you build this character, but if you need a shielder, he's okay. I will say you can use him, don't get me wrong, but if you have constellations, it's gonna be just better, because he can also buff your, I think it's normal attacks. I might be wrong there, but I think it buffs your normal attacks with Constellation 6, and that's about it. Not great character overall, but can be used. And well, we have Venti. I don't know about you guys, but I feel Venti deserves a spot in SS tier. He's been used since the release of the game, he's been broken for so long, he can basically pull everything into his burst, and his elemental skill deals a lot of damage, and it can also basically CC enemies, because you can throw them, because it can lift enemies in the air for a bit, at least the small ones. I don't know, I feel like this character is to this day one of the best Anemo supports in the game, and even if Kazuha makes your team even stronger because he can buff your attack, Venti has still so much potential because he can group up enemies, which is so useful in Abyss, where you have to clear it super fast and there's a lot of little enemies around, so you just pull them in the big vortex and destroy them with whatever you want. Very good character, I love his design, his burst literally costs nothing, he also refunds some energy to him and the characters that have the same element that his burst is infused with. Again, I don't know, but he's just amazing. And then we have Xiangling, and Xiangling is gonna be our second 4-star in SS tier, because she's that broken. She is completely insane. You cast her burst, you're gonna deal 20,000 damage with each hit, unless you increase that number with whatever you want. You have Bennett, sure, more damage. Also, her with Bennett is probably the best duo, because her burst can snapshot the buff from Bennett. That means that you can move around, even exit Bennett's area of buffs, and her burst is gonna deal the same amount of damage. As I said, she can proc melts with Rosaria, and they can kind of ping pong that around. She can be used with Child, she can be used with Shincho. She's just insane Abyss for so many reasons. She's amazing at single target, and she's amazing at dealing with groups of enemies. So many options. Her little Guba can also deal a lot of damage, and whenever he disappears, he leaves that chili pepper that increases your damage by another 10% for like 10 seconds. So many options. Just the character is just amazing. She can use one of the best artifact set in the game, which is the Emblem of Severed Fate, that increases her elemental burst even more. She can use the Catch, which is a free-to-play weapon you can just get in the game by fishing. She deals so much damage for free. You even get her for free from the Spiral Abyss 8, I think, the 8th floor. If you complete that, you get one copy for free. Amazing character. Her constellations are completely broken. Yeah, if you want a sub DPS or even a DPS, just use your Xiangling. She's gonna carry you through the whole game. And moving on to my favorite character in the game, and probably the favorite character for a lot of other players. So I'm kind of biased here, but he's gonna be an SS tier. He falls behind teams with Ito, for example, but he can still clear Abyss, he can still deal a lot of damage, he can deal with any content in the game that's not Abyss. Overall, amazing character. The only thing he cannot do is the Wolf, because he's immune to Anemo and Cryo, but that's about it. And yeah, he has a unique playstyle, which includes plunge attacks, which are completely insane. His plunge attacks have this huge area they hit whenever he plunges, and his elemental burst increases his damage by so much. His elemental skill deals so much damage, and even at C0 he's insane. But yeah, he's so much fun to play with. Even in exploration is quite cool because of his elemental skill. He can just dash around sometimes. One of the best 5-stars in the game. He also looks amazing. Like his design, every design in this game is amazing, but he's one of the best ones for me. And then we have another S tier here, which is gonna be Shincho. And Shincho is that good because two things. He's burst, that can apply Hydro, and also deal a lot of damage if you build him correctly, and his elemental skill that gives damage reduction. I think it's one of the few characters in the game that can give damage reduction to your characters, and that depends on how many swords are orbiting around you. And whenever you take a hit, you also get healed by that little swords that explode. You can apply Hydro very quickly. That means you can use him in a combo with Wu Tao, for example, or Diluc, or even in freeze teams with Ayaka if you don't have anyone else. And overall, he's one of those 4 stars that you kinda want to have in Genshin. But there's another 5 star that may come and you may see in the tier list. That's gonna be basically him on steroids, I will say. But we'll talk about that in a few seconds. Moving on to the rock star Xinyan. She's gonna be a B tier. But that's only because she is used in few teams, and she's Pyro, which for a physical DPS is not the best. You really wanna be either Electro or Cryo. Pyro can work, but I feel like she works best as a buffer for physical DPS like Razor or Eula, where you wanna use her elemental skill, which is a shield, to basically increase your physical damage and reduce the physical resistance of enemies, which is 2 things that are completely insane together. And her burst also deals quite a lot of damage, and I think it's either Constellation 1 or 2, where basically if you use your burst, you don't need crit rate anymore, you just wanna build for crit damage. You can also have the Pyro Resonance in your team, that means another 25% more attack, so it's nothing to laugh about. Her shield is probably the 3rd strongest shield in the game after Diona's ones, and maybe Thomas ones, I'm not super sure about that, but her shield scales of defense, and she can have so much defense, and her shield just becomes completely unbreakable. And moving on to another character that I love so much, oh so much, that's gonna be Yaemiko. I'm gonna put her in S tier, only because she has some, let's say, problems. You need to set up a lot of stuff to being able to deal a lot of damage with her, where you have to cast your elemental skills 3 times and use her burst, and then her burst can deal damage, then you have to cast her elemental skill 3 times again, so that lasts, let's say, around 6 to 7 seconds to just deal 1 burst, and then you can swap her out. I'm not saying that's bad, because I find that that's okay, because I mean 7 seconds, but some people don't really enjoy that. And also her damage isn't crazy unless you have Constellation 6, because her Constellation 6 is the same as Raiden's Constellation 2, so that's also another kind of problem. I think it might have to be changed, maybe make her Constellation 2 the same as Raiden's, but whatever. And I would say she's probably the best off-field electro damage dealer. She deals an insane amount of damage with her elemental skill. If you throw those turrets on the ground and you link them together correctly and you make them level 3 or level 4, depending on your constellations, they're gonna destroy enemies. Just completely destroy enemies. Whenever you cast your burst, you can expect around 150,000 to 200,000 damage without any problem. Like, she deals that much damage, she's just completely insane. So that's why I'm gonna put her in S tier, but don't get me wrong, she's an amazing character. You can even use her as a DPS, because why not? Everyone can be a DPS now. And moving on to the character that no one cared about, but now everyone loves, which is gonna be Yoimiya. And Yoimiya is an S tier. She can destroy bosses in seconds, she can destroy multiple enemies in seconds. I'm not even using a 5-star weapon on her, just the Shiminawa set to give her a lot of attack, and an R5 Rust, and she can deal around 40,000 damage with her normal attacks without using crazy buffs. Whenever I use crazy buffs, I've even seen 100,000 damage with just her normal attacks. She's a very powerful on-field DPS, and she deals an okay amount of damage with her burst while buffing your other teammates. So overall, one of the best 5 stars DPS in the game. But the thing is that she's the best character to farm with. If you wanna farm, she can literally destroy any enemy in the game without troubles. She can deal with specters, the most annoying enemies in the game, because since she's using a bow, she has auto-targeting, so she has that going. And that's why I like her. I also like her design, she's like amazing, she's very fun, and her story as well is also quite fun. Yeah, overall, very cool character, very cool design. I just enjoy this character so much. And a character that pairs really well with Yuemiya is gonna be Yunjin. I would say she's an A tier, but that's because she buffs your normal attacks by so much. She can be used in so many teams because of that. She's also Geo, and her elemental skill is kind of the same as Beidou, where she deals more damage if you pair it correctly and whatever. It's an amazing buffer, very survivable, very easy to build. Just put defense on her with a new set and you're gonna be completely fine. It can be used in a lot of teams for, like, for example, Yuemiya or Ayato or other normal attacks user. Even Dilo can use her. So many teams can use Yunjin as a character. And we have another SS tier, which is Zhongli. Zhongli gives you shield. He gives you immortality basically with that shield, because that shield has around 15 to 20,000 HP whenever you build him correctly, and also takes less damage. Also strips enemies' resistances. You can use the tenacity of the Mirrorlit set, artifact set on him, and give everyone a buff for attack. So there's that going. So much power in just one unit. His burst can stop enemies, petrify them for a few seconds, so you can recast your shield, for example, if you need a quick break from enemies. So many teams use Zhongli. For example, Zhao team use Zhongli, Hu Tao teams use Zhongli, Ito's team use Zhongli. So many teams use him because he's just that good. He has been used since basically his release for farming, because he's elemental skill. If you hold it and can destroy all the ores in a huge area, and you can farm ores like that. And moving on to Ayato, I will say Ayato for me feels like an A tier, but that's not because it's bad. He's very good as a DPS, but I don't really enjoy his playstyle too much. I will say his playstyle is kind of boring. You just have to become a turret and just hold down the left click button and wait for him to auto-target enemies. I would say that's good for a mobile Genshin player, because I've tried it myself, and aiming with a bow, for example, even targeting with a sword can be quite tricky. But overall, his kit is okay. He buffs his normal attacks through the use of his burst, and his burst is basically Ganyu's burst, but Hydro. Yeah, overall he deals an insane amount of damage. You can buff him in various ways. You can buff his attack speed for his elemental skill stance, and he can deal more attacks through that. So if you like his playstyle, use him. He's gonna destroy everything in the game. He's great for bosses, he's great for clearing Abyss, he's great for every content in the game. For, as I said, almost all the characters here have this thing. They're just amazing for everything in the game. He's just the same. Only thing being, whenever you activate his elemental skill, you cannot plunge or do charge attacks, and Child does kind of the same thing, where whenever you activate his elemental skill, he cannot do plunge attacks. So just remember to not try to jump off a cliff and try to plunge, because that's not gonna work and you're gonna die, so be careful about that. And we're now moving to the new characters here, which are this one, which I'm not gonna say the name, this one, which I'm not gonna say the name, and this one, which is Yelan, which we know about. And I mean, we also know about Cookie Shinobu, we also know about her, but we're not gonna talk about this one yet, because it's not been announced. We don't know how it's gonna be, while we have seen Cookie and Yelan's gameplay and their skills respectively. So Yelan, for me, is probably just gonna be either an S tier with Shincho here, or even an SS tier. For now, I'm gonna just put in an S tier, because I don't want to give her too much credit for what she is and build too much hype for her. So I'm gonna put her in the same slot with Shincho, because they kinda do the same thing, where you wanna activate her burst to deal off-field damage and apply Hydro, and use your elemental skill to build energy back, because I think her elemental skill spawns, I think it's between 3 or 4 elemental particles. That's a lot of particles, and she can probably recharge her burst very easily. And her abilities damage scale of her HP, so that's quite cool, and it's gonna be easier to build her because of that, because HP things are quite common, while trying to build crit rate and crit damage on Shincho, for example, can be quite annoying. And then we have Cookie. Cookie is going to be the first Electro healer in the game, so that's huge. I'm expecting some big heals from her kit, but we'll see if she's going to be that good or she's going to be meh and no one's gonna use her. And yeah, we'll see about her and how she is and how she heals, how much she heals, and what she does. And that's about it. That's because I'm putting her in A tier. And that completes the tier list, I will say. I mean, I feel okay with what I see here. There are some things that may change in the future. This is just my general idea for now. I'm not saying that you cannot use Chi-Chi, for example, or any of these characters in other teams. As I said, these ones, the only thing is that they have only one use, or maybe their use is quite gimmicky or weird. If you want to use Chi-Chi, you can definitely go for her. And yeah, as always with tier list, don't take this seriously. As I said, it's just for fun. I just wanted to express my thoughts on every character in the game and the new characters coming, without talking about this guy over here. He's gonna be waiting for a bit, but yeah, we'll see about him. So yeah, that's my tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I wish you a great rest of the day, or start of the day, depending on where you live. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.